Well, as you could have guessed on the title, today me and Erik are going to share our experience transitioning responsibility towards our team and explain how did we end up in a situation where actually our developers are fully responsible for running our applications basically from the beginning, from the moment when they develop code to the moment then they deploy and actually also solve the operational issues with it. Well, a couple words about us. I'm Anna, as you could have guessed, and this is Erik. I'm working as a site reliability engineer at the Bijenkorf, well, Erik.
Yeah, so I'm Erik. I'm a consultant at Xebia and help teams deliver software at a faster pace and higher quality.
All right, before we go any further, maybe I will slightly disappoint you with the following statement. But I have to admit that in the first place, it was never our goal, our final goal, to be in a situation where developers would be in a position where they currently are. So there is a story behind it, and when me and Erik were actually preparing for this talk, we really had like a lot of discussions, and we realized that the key component of the final result which we have right now is actually the sequences of the certain circumstances which happened at a certain moment and the decisions which we made at a certain moment, and they, well, we believe they turned out to be a right choice. And to give you a better idea what kind of circumstances I'm talking about, we've decided to bring you along the way with us through the journey of the Bijenkorf development team. Well, so it's going to be a recap on the team history. Well, please bear with us. I think it's really important to understand we will start like back in the days, back in 2009. I truly believe it's important for you to have a better idea. So I was a happy student, and back in 2009 I didn't know what is the Jenkins is and didn't really know how to code properly back then. But during the world suffering from the economic crisis everywhere, Bijenkorf launched their website. Well, ambitious, cool. Because it was the first attempt, and the Bijenkorf didn't know how it actually is going to work. Is it not going to work at all? They got the dog data company, which gave them the solution for e-commerce platform, and you could imagine that there were no developers at all in-house. So 2010, 2011, we started with introducing IntoShop. Well. I mean, IntoShop maybe is not the best solution on the market right now, and I'm not going to advertise it. But that allowed us at that moment to start the development process. And we basically stick to the third-party company, which I have to admit is still there, to run and develop that sales engine for us. And well, still in-house developers, zero. 2012 and 13, maybe some of you remember this insane madness when the iPhone 5 was a big thing and people were queuing up in the Apple Store waiting for the release. And well, at that moment, Bijenkorf released the mobile app. And just to make things more spicy, we went for another solution. So it was a completely separate code base. And also we onboarded another third-party company, just to make sure that it's going, it's getting more complex. And developers, we finally got a front-end intern. That sounds like a cool adventure. 2014, that's actually the moment, the key point there where things finally start shifting and something is finally happening. And but at that moment, I actually entered the company by end of 2014, and I was hired to help with the automating the tests there. But what I discovered when I started, that we would have the releases, which would happen only 3 times a week, or free every 3 weeks, and it will be managed by the third-party developers who share codes with the snippets over email. So lots of manual work, and developers in-house, we just started with the 5 front-enders. Although I have to admit, because you can imagine of all this heritage which was already there when they joined the company, people were really open for the changes and they were seeking for a change to happen. Well, although life was really, really, really hard, we had to fight for each release to happen. That was intense. 2015, we're building our backend team finally, and everyone wanted to become responsive every single website because it became a thing. And well, Bijenkorf sticks to trends, and we decided, well, we also need a responsive website. To make it happen, we need to introduce some sort of another technologies. We picked Adobe AM, Adobe Experience Manager, basically the content management system. And to deal with the Intershop, with the legacy which we already had at that moment, we had to introduce something in between. We came up with a service layer, which, the couple of backenders which we had back then placed as a plain EC2 instances in AWS. But it felt like nice progress already. So what you can see there, the demand of the releases, the need to release something was only like speeding up. And well, of course, what you get with that the amount of bugs will be just only increasing, and the team is also growing, and yeah, more stuff to code, and that was no brainer. We needed test automation. 2016, the responsive website is live. We're pushing really hard on the end-to-end tests. Well, we can release more often now, so it's not like once per 3 weeks. I mean, still, we have this caveats with more releases, then more changes we introduce. We have more issues with that. And the service layer, well, that middle layer is still fully managed by the third-party company. And I mean, when you involve someone else, it's naturally going to happen that they will slow down the process. They will become your bottleneck. And that was the case with us as well. And we were really aware of the quality issues which we have, and we had to push more. I mean, it was so clear that we need more tests. We can do better. And I think that was the moment when actually Erik joined us back in 2017.
Yeah, that's correct. So this was really, for me, the cue to start at the Bijenkorf. So they had this challenge. Okay, we want to release more often. We struggle with quality issues. How do we go about this? Obviously, there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of different things to tackle, but it really became a project to shape the way the Bijenkorf did test automation. So initially, there's some set of automated end-to-end tests. I don't know if everyone is completely familiar in the testing world. We want to push this to a lower level to get faster feedback. So this year was really focusing on these kind of improvements. So increasing the feedback cycle, building tests at the right level, educating teams, developers. Okay, how should you be testing? But still, both teams, we had front-enders, we had back-enders. They're still super busy, so there's this pressure from business. We have to deliver features. It's really, it's almost a struggle to find the time to push things in the right direction. And still, this is what we were doing. Really pushing. You have to care about the thing you build, about the thing you release. We're building all these test types, but these tests are completely useless if you're not actually running them. So where do you run them? You put them in your pipeline. So we did. There was some rudimentary let's call them pipelines in place. So we try to integrate these tests there. Yeah, things slowly are taking shape, things are improving. And then actually there's a very nice bonus to this all. Because we're running all these tests much more frequently, then we uncover, hey, we have all these intermittent test failures. For those guys who work with automated tests, then the gut reaction usually is, your tests are flaky, something is wrong with them. But then we dive deeper and it actually we uncover, hey, there's glaring problems with this application, with this environment. And all the same issues that we're seeing in these tests, and we're seeing them because we're running all these tests so frequently, they're happening on our production environment as well. So, hey, what's going on there? We have to start this investigating process. What's going on? But we still have to deal with this third-party company. That means you're restricted in the access that you have to environments. Communication happens through tickets. So then, you create a ticket, and in 3 days you'll get an answer. And you can really feel this frustration is building. And it seems that we have quite a fundamental problem there. So, come 2018, it's not that the Bijenkorf makes all these projects per year, but it just happens to align fairly nice with the years. And it really became our goal to to stabilize these environments and to further improve this quality mindset in teams. So we're both from a testing background. We care a lot about quality, and we want to keep pushing on this for people to improve. Then you start to plan, to investigate, and actually there's quite a lot of work to be done with these, with regards to these environments. Because everything at that point that we're running there, it's all manually created. And that means, okay, we have differences between our development and production environments. These environments are not reproducible. If we want to do debugging, if we want to change things on an environment, well, that's quite risky because we don't know what the configuration should be. Obviously, we want to have this entire infrastructure as code, so it's reproducible. And we do our research, and we end up selecting Kubernetes as a platform where we want to run our application. Because we don't want to manage this thing ourselves, we pick a managed solution. And then you go for Google. It's pretty much the gold standard. And actually, this was also a great moment to rethink how are we doing our CI and CD. With a new platform we need to deploy to, we have to change things anyway. So might as well reflect on this. What can we improve? How things can be better. And one of the things that pop up there is that actually, to do the CI/CD properly, we have to do refactoring to our application. So the service layer, originally it's built, let's call it microservices. Those are hip, but it's just a big monolith. We cannot deploy these services in isolation to production. And now it's hurting us because we try to create these fancy, nice pipelines. We want to release all these super small services, we want to test them in isolation, and we're struggling with this. So something needs to happen. And at that point, actually something very nice happened. And this is, if we look back, probably one of the first signs that things are changing. So we're sitting in this meeting together with all our backend developers, and we're discussing this problem. So we have this service layer, we want to build a test and release it in isolation, but we cannot do it. This needs refactoring, we need to decouple everything. How should we go about it? And then someone comes with this idea, hey, we should promote one captain per microservice, and that captain should become the owner of this piece of code. And yeah, if you look at it, that's a quite fundamental change, and it has a lot of positive results. Because now, instead of it being one big chunk where everyone can be quite anonymous, we have very clearly defined owners. One person will be in charge of a very small application. That means this person will be in charge of making all decisions. So if we want to do refactoring, if we want to change something, how things are deployed, tested, whatever, we can speak to one person, maybe two persons, instead of having to deal with an entire team. This gives us a lot of flexibility. And yeah, I was actually reading not so long ago, Microsoft did some research that actually if you have a strong code ownership, in this case, this leads to less defects in your code. So this change pretty happy about.
Yeah, well, that's the result what we get but by the end of this big refactoring. So the whole green area which you can see, it used to be one big monolith, well, aka service layer. Right now, it's been just a bunch of the individual components. It's all separate workloads running in a Google Kubernetes engine. Those components are individual, they are independent, and they have a clear owner. So, and then they have their own defined pipeline, and they can be treated and managed completely in isolation. So, I mean, you can imagine, right, that it's a lot of work, and because all the initiative started just when the group of backenders gathered together and they were sitting and coming up with these different ideas how we can do things better. At certain moments we have to stick to certain agreements, and we have to align the changes which we want to introduce. And to make sure that we not duplicating work, that we don't do the same work twice, or also to ensure that we adopt best practices, we needed a middle layer, someone who will take care and who will be that in central position to take care, to make sure that everything is aligned. And this is the moment that the CIA is born. So, well, don't be confused. Actually, CIA stands for Continuous Integration Advocates, and the name actually was given us by the developers themselves. We just promised them cake, and well, people came up with different suggestions for the team name, and that was the one which we picked, which we liked the most. So, well, the CIA mostly responsible to facilitate all the CI/CD processes, and we're responsible for adopting the best practices. We are responsible with the providing the enabling all our functional squads with required frameworks, tools, everything to smooth their software development policy. Or software development process, and also, well, the CIA does the heavy lifting. So it's really unrealistic to expect that your developers would know all the Kubernetes specifics. It's unrealistic that your developers would take care of your network. Things like auto-generated SSL certificates, things like all the DNS records which are going to be created. We take care of all of that. So that sort of takes that responsibility from the developers, and they don't have to worry about those things. And I have to say that the CIA is also hiring, so it's a minute of shameless promotion. If you are into if you call yourself the cloud engineer, DevOps engineer, SRE, or if you're willing to join and looking for a change, this is the moment. Drop me an email. Okay, now I think just to give you an idea how big is the change and what do we mean by the what sort of the role of the CIA currently nowadays and how do developers approach us in that regards. To basically to give you an idea where we are at the moment, I thought it's a nice example to talk about how we would solve the task where let's say we have to deploy the new microservice in production, well, on any other environment in general. So there would be a few steps involved. We would just create a bunch of Kubernetes entities, Kubernetes templates, and we will set CI/CD for Jenkins. And well, this is it. I'm just going to show you a little bit more in the code. So this is the screenshot of one of the repositories where we have all our Kubernetes templates written there for each of the microservices which we have. Once we, sorry? Oh, I don't think it's possible, I'm afraid. I will share the slides after that, and feel free to look it up there. But just to give an idea that they all identical to each other, and mostly for developers, when it comes to like, oh yeah, I have to create a new, a namespace or ingress for myself, they would be able to find then the template which they just basically copy paste and do just couple alterations, and here you go, you're ready. As a result of that, well, we will create all our workloads in a Google Kubernetes engine. Then, when it comes to CI and CD, our Jenkins configuration, yes, we still use Jenkins, and we're going to talk about it later, but for our Jenkins configuration, we use Jenkins job DSL. It means that all our Jenkins jobs are also presented in code, and basically to set up the pipeline in Jenkins for your microservice. As a developer, you just have to go to another repository with the Jenkins jobs, and well, again, copy paste most of the stuff which is already there with the framework which we already built for them. And as a result, you will have the bunch of the jobs which will bring your microservice to production, where we start from the pull request in the GitHub, and it will end up on a deployment to the Google Kubernetes engine. Also, we take care, as I said, of our DNS records. So this is a screenshot from Cloudflare, where all A records would be just generated with the tools which we run as our cluster add-ons in Google Kubernetes engine again. And we also provision our teams with the auto-generated Prometheus graphs, where, from a developer, we would just require to ensure that Prometheus metrics are exposed, and as soon as this is the case, those graphs will be auto-generated for them. On top of that, we have alerts, where basically, using those exposed Prometheus endpoints, we'll receive notifications that something is going wrong. And yeah, again, as a developer, you don't have to really worry about those things, because we, the CIA squad, are taking care of that. Well, it was a quite intense 23 minutes on a brief history of the Bijenkorf, and I think right now this is the moment where we're going to share, a lot of things happened, but I think there were major points which brought most value, and I think Erik is going to go in depth.
Yeah, so the first point to me would be basically all these points, nothing is in order, nothing is ranked to priority. These are all points that we felt were contributing to this change that we made. And yeah, the first point, to simplify code ownership, I kind of already touched upon it. You don't want this big pile of anonymity, where you change something in a big system, no one's responsible. The fact that we have these captains, these clear owners per service, works out really well. That means people start to care much more about the software they create, they release, and yeah, we really notice this in practice as well, where developers suddenly start to care about, oh yeah, we need to change some dependencies, oh I can improve this part, or maybe whatever, or write it in a completely new language, my service, hey, it's your thing, enjoy, do whatever you want. And yeah, you can see the enthusiasm. I think it's an important point. Secondly, we really set out to empower our teams as much as possible. So there was this old status quo where, okay, you have this external company who's managing all the software, how it runs in production, and it gives a tremendous amount of frustration with all the development teams, because everyone feels the same issue. We want to get the simple change done, we hit in all kinds of break walls, we don't have access to an environment, they don't understand the things we want to do. This company is geographically abroad, so yeah, the distance is just huge. And really we're very, okay, we don't want to be their replacement. We don't want to be to end up in exactly the position that that company found themselves in. So what we tried to do was to create this self-service model. We want to make things as easy as possible for teams. Like Anna mentioned, you want the DNS record, well, put it in your deployment, it will get created for you. You want SSL certificate, put an annotation, you will get it. Things like this, I feel, will help. It's all boring work that no one wants to do, and now it all happens automatically for you. With regards to deployment, here's all the templates you need to do deployment. But if you want to do things differently, feel free. You have all the room to experiment, to change things, and this is actually also very nice for us because we don't know everything, and yeah, teams do something in a different way. Okay, maybe that's a very valid input for us, and we can change and improve things overall. Then thirdly, the decision process matters a lot. This is quite of an open door, so to say. And I mean it in this way in the context of shifting this responsibility from, hey, dear developer, suddenly you have to be on call in your weekend in case the service goes down. I think if you bring it in such a way, then this will not go over well. The vast majority of people will say, well, no thank you, I will not do this because I have a very clear contract, I work 40 or however many hours per week, and I will not work anything outside of this contract. So how did we go about this? Well, we actually sat down with, in this case, all our backend developers, and said, okay, we kind of are at the junction. There's something that we would like to try, which is, in this case, this responsibility shift. And how would you guys feel about it? And what would you need in order, for us to make such a change? And then through the group discussion, this helps to make people feel like they're owning the decision. It helps in the acceptance of this change. Actually, there's people mentioning, this is not us telling them, actually things will not be so different because we are already getting called in the weekend. There's this WhatsApp group with all business stakeholders, and they'll go crazy if the site is down, and they'll start calling people. So, is it so big of a change? Oh yeah, by the way, and that's what the work we took upon ourselves. We will speak with HR, and we will arrange that you will get compensation for actually doing this. Yes, you're on call in the weekend. That means you should be paid for it. And if you actually have to work, if you have to fix something, then you can compensate your time, take the day off, the next day, whatever. And that's how we got started with it. Okay, let's try this out for 2 or 3 months and see how it goes. Now, yeah, the change is still there.
I think that there's also one important note at that moment to say. It was really hard for some developers to accept that change coming, but because I mean you're going to be responsible for you can monitor not only yours baby, if I may say so, but also someone else. And here at that moment where our identity of our microservices and identity of the pipelines and identity how we configure our deployments, how we manage our certificates, how we manage our external DNS, just all because it's all unified, that gave quite a lot of confidence for developers to be ready to accept and deal with someone else's work. And also, when the effort is shared, when people start, someone else has start pushing the change, and saying yes, I can do it, it's going to be fine, and it works, you will slightly notice that other developers are also slightly moving their mindset towards the same idea, that they easily accept the change which is coming, just because they feel confident with they can see other example of the other developer who is already succeeded there.
Yeah, thank you, Ivana. So, another point, again, it's quite stating the obvious, but knowledge sharing is hard, very hard. Because we're in this we'll call it a project. It sounds very formal. It wasn't formal. We're doing this migration to Kubernetes, and we feel okay. When should we actually start with to really think about this, to do some work here? Because early on, things are really in motion. You don't really know what your solution will look like. You're experimenting. So to get a grasp of, okay, this is a good moment to start sharing information, this felt fairly challenging. And what you tend to do is to push this back, say, but I still have to fix this other thing. So what we ended up doing, we organized several workshops to give basically everyone a more general experience with Kubernetes, just called the sandbox. You can play around. And then when the moment arises when it's time to migrate a specific service, we would be pairing intensively with these teams or developers to actually write deployment templates, do whatever configuration is needed to do this migration for, let's say, a more in-depth knowledge sharing session. But if I look back, then I think we should have put more thought into this. One of the ideas, for instance, that we had was for us to join different teams and really be part of the team for a couple of weeks or however long it takes to really get this close feeling of what's happening, what's bothering people. But we never got around to doing this. Also, you really have to realize that everyone learns in a different way. So for some, it's give me the code or give me some documentation and I'll figure it out. Others want to be taught. You really have to cater for these different groups accordingly. And again, I feel we could have done a better job there. Next point. For your logging and your monitoring, you really should see it as a feature. In a lot of cases, then it's more of an afterthought. Okay, we have an application, and maybe in the more traditional way of thinking, it's okay. Let's monitor some resource usage, and if it's okay, then it's probably okay. No, during development, you have to think about if something goes wrong, do I need this application? What will we be logging? How will we be logging? Look at structured logging to name something. The same goes with monitoring. This is actually, I think, a nice result of the change we made. I feel to do monitoring well, then you need to have in-depth knowledge of the application. You need to know what is it, how do we know that this thing is working. Again, if CPU usage is below a certain threshold, this pretty much will tell you nothing. We all run in a cloud environment, everything is scalable, so just scale up. You can mitigate this risk. What you want to know is, well, what's the purpose of your application? Is it still able to fulfill this purpose? And really your developers are best suited to build such monitoring. Basically expose all the metrics and start measuring and alerting on those metrics that count. And this is what is all happening with different services. They say, okay, now I need to do this, well then I need to know this and this and this, and suddenly all these metrics get exposed, get created. While before, this external party never had this. And so on. Then for another point, it's really important to keep listening and keep evaluating the feedback that you get back from teams. So when you do a change like this, then you deal with a lot of different teams. And it's quite important that you don't dictate everything. Even though the team can decide to do something in a different way. And even though you think, okay, on a technical level, it can be better if you do it in a different way, it's not always needed, and it can be absolutely okay they do something differently, because the sense of ownership they will have, if it's their solution, if they come up with it, if they implement it, is much more important than this small technical improvement that you potentially can get. So that's good to reflect to yourself. What points should you guide teams on what you think, okay, hands off, let's let it happen, and let them learn, let them do it.
Well, right now to make a certain architectural decision, we always, gather all the backenders together and we try to do a brainstorm session on how to approach it in a better way, so it's never been dictated, it never comes from one end. And we always take into account what they say back and try to find a way where everyone will be happy with the solution we found. And if I may ask myself, can we be even better? Yes, definitely we can. No one said we're perfect. There is still plenty of work for us to do. Once again, we are hiring. If I have to think about, if I have to name features which we would like to focus in the coming future, in the year of 2019, or whatever is left from it. When we first thought about splitting our monolith, we started dreaming about things like, we can do canary releases then. For those, I don't know, for whatever reason you're not familiar with, you just basically spread your traffic where partly it will be run on a new version of the application, and other parts of the traffic will end up on the old one. That allows you to, let's say, safely release new features. Also get rid of Jenkins. I mean, I sort of feel attached to Jenkins, but nowadays there are way better solutions, and some of other teams do work with the cloud builder, with the GitHub Actions, mostly because, again, we give them, they sort of claim it's the freedom, and we never limit them. We allow them to come up with alternatives. The SRE culture, I mean, we're building it up, but definitely not there, and it will take some time. The alerts, although we have them, and I'm pretty sure we do a better job there. I have to speak about our third-party companies where actually in most of the cases we alert them on outages on their side, which is already says something about quality. We want to end up in a situation where we have only alerts which require an immediate action. So you don't want to be bothered when system goes down and you know it recovers within a couple of minutes, it already it means something is already wrong with your environment, and you want to avoid a situation where people just they start ignoring certain alerts just because it's normal. You sort of expect, it will be recovered within a minute. No, it should not be like that. You have to be really strict on that, and if you have an alert, it should be something is on fire. So yeah, that you have to act now and don't postpone it for tomorrow or for later. Well, I think this is actually it. I have to thank you for your attention. It's been long, 39 minutes. Thank you so much, and feel free to ask questions.
For me, the conclusion is that Bijenkorf IT is a learning organization. I think that's the highest you can attain. I think there's nothing more.
Thanks.
Just for my understanding, how big is the team at this moment? The back-end team, the front-end team, and
okay,
the
the total team, if I will count back-enders, front-enders, and app developers, around 50 people. And currently the CIA team consists of 2 people. So, and we will never be able to do that job if our developers would not be, if they wouldn't be onboarded. Without their help, without their contribution to that, it would never be possible.
Well, it's a bright story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a happy end. Yeah.
Are you also automating security tests or stuff like that?
What do you mean by security tests? We do some scanning of our Docker images. It's part of our PR jobs.
And I saw sonar cubes somewhere. So
correct.
Yes. Analysis.
Yes. We use.
Yeah. So I'll also share some thoughts on it. So yes, we did some work, and actually we used to have more in place for that. But then what you notice, the added value is actually quite low. So what we're doing, and maybe if you're a bit familiar with the tooling, was SAP, and you can proxy all your requests through it. So we would have our test and then proxy through SAP, and then we get some report. But then what we notice, it's extremely flaky and it's slow. Then we have to make a trade-off that, okay, we're getting very little results out of it. It makes our builds unstable, basically our pipeline unstable. I don't want a thing that's constantly red.
Yeah.
So we decided, okay.
So is it flaky in terms of false positives or?
Just the application itself. So I think the more you're in a niche, then you have to use certain tooling, and basically the less love all this tooling gets. So you just end up, in the case of SAP, it's unstable, it's slow, it doesn't get the same development attention as all the super popular big tooling. So they make a decision, okay, it doesn't add enough, let's get rid of it. And then personally, I believe much more into, okay, let's organize a couple of pen tests, let's educate developers on some secure aware coding, and of course there's some scanning you can do on your dependencies, but this kind of gets integrated. So on Google, your Docker containers get automatically scanned for vulnerabilities. But if you think about it, okay, if you construct your containers in a proper way, then you have such a minimal set of dependencies in the containers that you avoid this problem altogether. Still, I wouldn't rely too much on tooling here.
Okay.
I've got a question on the code ownership. If I understand correctly, there's a single captain owner of code?
Co-captain, and we also we have captain and co-captain, so there's always like a backup.
Yeah, that was what.
There is
can
always
go on leave, but you have to
exactly. There is always a co-captain, and where we moving right now, where actually each of the platform would get like owned by a team with a dedicated captain within the team. So it's still like a responsibility. It belongs to the team to be responsible for it, and but yeah. There should be still one person you can point and say, if you have any questions, that person is the most knowledgeable person about it. This is where you should go. And to make it even more straightforward and like into your face, we ensured that every single repository which we have right now in the GitHub has defined captain there. It's just written down there, and I mean there is no way how you can, you know, avoid it.
You prevent that the ownership goes too far and becomes off limits or gets too dependent on the captain or a single person. Still, the rest of the team can still contribute code.
Well, here where that's the moment where some general like identity of our microservices is coming into the place. They all well, there's an agreement that we use Spring as the framework for most of them, so it already limits you with the let's say the programming languages you can pick. Also, there is a limitation on that we going to deploy it on Google Kubernetes Engine. It also limits you with the well, choices, let's say it that way. Also, since we provide a framework to handle Kubernetes templates, Kubernetes entities.
But also, if I were to answer it, I would say, if it happens, then we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened so far, so.
But agreed might happen.
Do you guys also use help or something?
Yes, we do. And actually, this is on the list for the coming year, although official release of Helm 3 is not announced yet. But we're looking forward, and again, to make that decision, we gathered all backenders together, where we started an open discussion talking about the pros and cons of Ansible and Helm, because most of the deployments are currently done with Ansible.
Yeah,
Because
so
at the moment,
to give some context, we initially decided to use Ansible for the secret management it gives. Also, the entire killer concept of Helm is pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
So that's why we opted for an Ansible solution.
back then, Helm 3 is still RLS and really supported by Google, and we want to give it a try, but not now.
What about Istio?
Yeah.
So
For canon releases, that's the way to go for us. Although you have to think about, so with the Istio, you're introducing certain complexity in your Kubernetes engine. And you have to be really careful realizing whether the complexity that you introduce actually worth the benefits which you're going to get from it. So it's, right now, yes, we want to have canon releases, and we're trying to figure out whether the complexity which Istio will bring to the actually worth it.
So you say you're still experimenting?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe a small advice from the operations side of the activities. So there is like a language or such framework called inspect. You can write like compliance or security as a code related to your actual code repositories, your Kubernetes cluster, and so on. So
Inspect.
maybe you can have a look at that.
Oh, sounds nice. Thank you.
How to deal with the problem that most of the developers don't care about networks, don't understand the networks, understand heterogeneous systems. There's always a wall between the business level developers and platform or users.
So this is where this CI team comes into play.
But the on-call
This is-
should actually understand what's going on the platform.
That's
so
true.
If I understood correctly, most of your backend developers are participating in on-call.
Yeah.
So this means that they actually understand the low-level networking, for example.
Yeah,
Is this
definitely.
true?
Yeah, that's.
Well,
It's, well, I would not say that they really deep into the understanding of the whole concept. Like we use shared VPCs in GG, and they know the concept of the shared VPC, that we have different projects where we manage our network in one project and our cluster attached to another project which is mounted into another project. So they know the basic concept of that. Although, if I go back in the history, let's say if I go of all incidents which we have in production environment, within the last year and a half, I can tell you there was only one where there was an issue with the network, and you were there at that moment. But since then, we had if the potential issues which they might look into, either related with a third party being being solved by introducing circuit breakers. But yeah, eventually at one moment it happens where our pods, they basically went down because they could not connect to their external systems. And yeah, again, we all sat together in one room trying to figure out how we can prevent it from happening. And everyone agreed we need circuit breakers, so every single developer owning a microservice went down and checked which dependencies do I have and introduced the circuit breakers there. And that's the way we handle it.
On course are supported by CIA.
Yeah.
And that's I think the pragmatism. So I'm no longer at the Bijenkorf. I'm working for another client now. But this is something I liked at the Bijenkorf. So what was just mentioned here, it's a learning organization. People are very pragmatic. In the old situation, then there's people on call who cannot fix the majority of the problems. So we don't have to have a perfect solution where the person on call can fix and do everything. Yes, something can happen, then yeah, you find the person who knows, you give them a call, and it will be figured out. And that's and worst case, yeah, it hurts, but then we're done. Then no one will die. So, but it's very painful and you don't want it.
How did you motivate developers for this change? Because in the past I did quite some teams where the team was behaving like a team, were refusing all the changes. Or they were saying, yes, we are DevOps, but once you saw the work, all the stuff was just somehow hidden or
yeah, so I think what helped a lot here was this context where people have these years of experience dealing with party really suffering, really being so unhappy, and this makes them willing, okay, yeah, you have to do some work, but all the shit is gone, and now you can do it. And that, I think, helped a lot. But then obviously I realized this is not something you can just replicate everywhere, because all the contexts are different.
For a while, the service layer, although the code itself would be written in-house, the AWS instances would be managed by the third-party company. I'm doing a good job not naming them still, but still a third-party company. And those guys, they would give like clear instructions on what to do, how to deploy, how to debug, what to do if something goes on well on production, there are some incidents and so on. Although there always would be a situation when all of a sudden they missed one step and then something went wrong and they no longer knowledgeable on how to tackle it, how to deal with it. And I remember that day that at a certain moment people would just start saying like, oh man, why do we do it with them? I mean, we just can do it ourselves. And that was the moment when that all rised. So, I mean, I'm not giving you an advice to make sure you have a shitty third-party company to run it. I'm not giving you an advice on it, but yeah, it definitely, if the situation is like people are not happy with the situation which is currently there at the moment, they would be more than happy to accept a solution which you might have for them.
You mentioned in the beginning that you had a level of quality that you were not happy with and that it went up. Did you measure this quality? And if so, how?
No, we didn't measure it.
Okay.
And it's really, yeah, it's maybe a lame answer, but it's a gut feeling. So you see how many production incidents do we have. We used to do RCAs when something happens. Yeah, this is somewhat of an indicator.
But you don't also measure release frequency and that kind of parameters?
No, so the point it is now, you have a change, you want to release it, you release it.
Sure.
There's no...
But it's all about functionality to get it to the customer.
That's true, but we don't measure it.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, in the end, we need to build it. We can spend a lot of time to measure it, or well, we build functionality, and that's it. Yeah,
Sure.
Again, very pragmatic.
But there is no management in your neck to say, hey, are we improving in that regard?
The measurement is done on. I'm not at Bijenkorf anymore, but at team level, so velocity and sprints, and this on this angle.
Okay.
Question: why are you using Ansible, and who's actually creating those playbooks?
Okay. Well, as Eric already mentioned, so the migration to Kubernetes we've started like more than a year ago already, and at that moment the choices were limited. It would be either Ansible or Helm for us. And as Eric already mentioned, well, first of all, secret management. That for us it was quite important, and we preferred Ansible in those regards. Helm too at that moment had an issue with a tailor, which is, I mean, it's a big pseudo user running on your Kubernetes engine. You know, you don't want to have those risks. And
originally we didn't even want to use Ansible, so I don't want to layer another layer of abstraction on top. Keep things as simple as possible. So the idea was, okay, kubectl, apply all the files, done. But then we started to think, okay, we need some sort of templating. We need to do something with secrets, and we ended up picking Ansible.
And the playbooks, who are creating them?
So we created
the templates.
The majority, let's say the templates, and then the team can pick a template and fill it in.
So nowadays, let's say in most of the cases, a team would be capable to update the playbook themselves. Although, if they struggle or they feel that they don't have enough knowledge, they would just approach us. And again, we're more than happy to assist and help them.
And managing those roles, version control, are you doing that?
Version control for deployments, you mean?
No, I mean the Ansible roles. Yes.
Yeah, so they're all under code, just in Git.
Okay. Is it normal Ansible to use version Git commits?
Yeah, I know it works, so.
It works.
I don't know. I'm just using the Ansible for like a couple of weeks, and I'm really happy with it. Okay. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so would I pick it again? Probably not.
Right now, if you have a choice, I would consider Helm. Mostly because it's, if you go to any, well, particularly for JK, any documentation on the Google, you will see zero mentioning of Ansible. You will see Helm exclusively.
Still, but it's a lot of personal opinion here in my comment. If I look at Helm charts, so what happens? Everything, all the variables get substituted in. There's so much Jinja logic in the templates that it's completely unreadable.
They're bloated,
and a lot of things are parameterized that you think, but why? You're never going to change this. So your readability suffers massively. For what gain? And that's what we have. So we have a couple of variables, and that's it. And a lot of is just a default in the template. If for that one service you want to change it, okay, so you change it directly in the template.